Welcome back to Andersen Acres. Today we are in the kitchen once again, and we would like to make apricot bread. Apricot bread is one of my favorites. I know I say that a lot, but it's actually my son's absolute favorite, and I don't make it that often. So I am going to make it today. It's very, very simple. Okay? To this dough, in with the water, you can either add shredded carrot or chopped dried apricot if you like. I'm not going to do that today, mostly because I don't have any dried apricot, but you can. I'm not. My son likes to make toast with it, and he doesn't like chunks in his toast, so no apricot in mine, no carrot in mine, but you can add about half a cup of shredded carrot or chopped dried apricot if you'd like to this dough. So the first ingredient is one egg. Just one egg. Yeah, just an egg. Okay, I save the eggshells to feed back to my chickens. You also want to do half a cup of apricot nectar. I like to tilt the pan there just so I don't spill it. Quarter cup of water. Okay, now you're going to want half a cup of yogurt. I use a thicker yogurt, but you can use really any yogurt that you have. It doesn't actually matter. As long as it's plain yogurt. You don't want to make this out of yogurt that is flavored because that won't taste very good. Vanilla yogurt you could probably get away with. So you also want 1 or 2 tablespoons, I'm doing 2 tablespoons of butter. Yes, I often put butter in mine. You want 2 tablespoons of honey. I just squeeze the honey directly. I don't mess up my tools by getting honey on it, and I just guesstimate. That looks like 1 tablespoon. That looks like 2 tablespoons. That's the honey. Very, very easy. Because you're using honey, you're not using sugar. Okay, so if you want it a little bit sweeter, you can add a little extra honey. I'm doing half a teaspoon of salt. Any salt you like. And I'm doing 3 cups of regular white flour. Okay. You'll notice when you're baking, your ratios stay pretty much the same. Okay, so it's 1 cup of liquid-ish to 3 cups of flour-ish. Okay, it's just because baking is a bit of a science. It's also an art, but it's definitely also a science. So 1 cup of liquid, 3 cups of flour. Here is 1 heaping teaspoon of bread machine yeast because it's going in the bread maker. You can also make this with traditional yeast if you like. So I'm just going to pop this in the bread maker, and we will come back in about 90 minutes to look at the finished dough and shape it into a loaf. Well, our golden apricot dough has now gone through its first rise, so it's just a ball of dough. We're going to want to make a loaf out of it. Before I do that, I do want to explain about the water I added. Now, you may not need that water in your dough. You may be able to just use the yogurt and the apricot nectar. The problem here right now is it's really, really dry where I am today. It's fall. There's a lot of days where it's either really, really humid or really, really dry. It's a weird season where I am. It's just a strange thing. So if it were a little more humid, I might need not a quarter cup of water. I might need 1/8 of a cup or maybe even less. But because it's so dry here today and I've been doing this so long, I knew I would need the full quarter cup. So what I would recommend is have your quarter cup of water standing by. Keep an eye on your dough if you're using your bread maker. Check it every couple minutes. See if you need the water. If you're mixing it by hand, you'll know if you need the water. You'll know it doesn't feel like regular bread dough. So that's my recommendation with the water. I added it because I knew I would need it. You may not need as much. Okay, it's really, really dry here today. Anyway, our dough is ready. It looks gorgeous. It's got this orangey color because it has the apricot nectar in it. It's going to be very, very sweet. Not overly sweet, but it's still a very sweet loaf. So what we're going to do is shape it into a regular loaf. I'm going to use a bread pan. So here's my bread pan. We want to shape it about as long as the bread pan. We're going to take our canola oil spray. My pan is silica, so it's not really a sticky kind of pan, but we're still going to spritz it just a little, just in case it decides it wants to stick. It probably won't. So then you want to find your smoothest side of your dough. For me, it's going to be this back side here. This is a little smoother. It'll probably rise up being smooth anyway, that's a good spot. Pop it in your bread pan. You're going to want to set this aside to rise until it's about double in size. It's probably only going to take about 45 minutes. This stuff rises pretty well because the apricot nectar is sweet and feeds the yeast quite well. So it's probably going to take only 45 minutes for this to double in size. But we'll come back and check and see if 45 minutes is indeed sufficient. So our golden apricot bread has risen up nicely. We're going to pop it in the oven, 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 30 minutes, and then it should be golden. We'll come back and see how it does. Remember, 375, 25 to 30 minutes. And there is our golden apricot bread, fresh out of the oven. Ouch. We're going to let it cool about 20 minutes in the pan, just so that it holds its shape when we do remove it. I don't need to show you that. You'll notice I did not glaze it before I baked it, and I'm not going to glaze it now. I'm just going to leave it as is. This bread is delicious just the way it is. So I'm going to let it cool 20 minutes in the pan. Then I'm going to slice it up for my younger son to eat, because this is one of his favorite breads of all time. It's really nice piping hot, but do let it rest for 20 minutes before you remove it from that pan, just to keep it from collapsing on itself. Remember, hot breads are not finished cooking on the inside when they're fresh out of the oven. So thank you for joining us today to make apricot bread with us. If you'd like to see some more of our baking videos, make sure to like and subscribe so that we can keep baking for you. We'll see you tomorrow.